Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. This is Bally's super cool Cybernaut pinball machine. It kind of pays homage to Xenon. We'll look at that here in a second. So Joey got this in earlier, and we're supposed to fix it for a gentleman. But I've never had this particular machine. Cybernaut. Now this is, I can just tell by the cabinet, this is from probably 83, 84, I would guess. Because Bally was doing their cabinets kind of like that then. And this was after they started kind of, trying to help the bottom line by cutting some things out of the machines. So the cabinets were a little cheaper, although the artwork was cooler. So it's silk screened instead of stenciled. I kind of prefer the stenciled art, but what can you say? It certainly looks really cool. Looks great. This side's pretty good. This side's better than the other side. The other side had a couple little chips. And most importantly, this beautiful mirrored back glass is flawless. We'll take a closer look at that here in a minute. Now on the playfield, if you look, see the tube? That's very famous from Xenon, but on Xenon it went the other way. So this ramp over here on the left was on the right on Xenon. And then it came down over here to a lock, which I don't know if that's a lock. Yeah, there's no lock on this one. So there's probably not multi-ball. But maybe. We'll see. Or maybe they did multi-ball different. Of course, it has a ball locked right now, but we'll talk about that in a minute too. It doesn't have the little LED strip that was on Xenon. Or was it LEDs on Xenon? Yeah, it was, wasn't it? There were little blue LEDs. I think I've got that right. Maybe they were red. Whatever. Beautiful little... I'll bet they were blue because they had blue ones back then. So probably little LEDs. Maybe they were just regular light bulbs. I don't know, people. It's been a long time since I worked on one. And every one I've ever had the little LED mod on that little strip if it wasn't original. Every one I've ever seen had LEDs, but I don't know if that was added later. It was certainly... There was a little strip there for sure from the factory. But on this one, there's not. So, cost cutting measure. And then you have the ion generator. And I've heard that one of the new Stern machines has this same thing going on. So there's like a little ramp, and you hit 3 stand-up targets. I heard on the Stern they are drop-down targets. Okay. And there is a little small flipper over here. I guess to get over, huh? Now on Xenon, at the top, this is centered. And the 4 little rollover buttons there are on Xenon. It's just like that, except they're spread out a little more. And the ball lands in a little saucer up in the middle, if I remember correctly. It's a very similar idea. They've just moved stuff around a little bit, and then they reversed the ramp. Now there are 4 drop targets. I don't know if I just said there weren't any, but there are. They're right there. All right. So, Joey has already checked this thing out for us. He figured out everything that's wrong with it, and he left me a note. Over and over and over again he does this. He does this every day on every game. Hey, Joe, now check it out real good for me, okay? I want you to check it out, make sure everything... Joey, write down every... And I get all frustrated about it because he never does it. Joe... I need a list, and I need it specific. I need it to say the name of the game, the guy's name, the phone number, and every little thing that he says is wrong with it, because how am I going to know if the... Calm down a little bit. So I called the guy. His name's Robert. Robert says that the coils don't work, which would explain why the ball is stuck up there. The coil can't kick it out. Some of the lights don't work. Would like us to kind of check that over if it's not too extensive or expensive. He doesn't want us to go crazy on this, people. He's trying to keep this budget friendly. I don't blame him. Maybe some of the rubber rings, he said he replaced them himself, but if there's any that needed again, go ahead and do it. Maybe clean up a little bit of it, like the cobwebs and stuff. Right? He said there's a bug. Yep. There is a bug. If you're squeamish, don't look. It's dead, folks. So what is that bug? Is that a bee? I think it's a bee. That's not a cockroach. It may be in the cock family, but it's not a cockroach. Okay. And so that's what he wants to do. Okay, so the thing works apparently, but it's broke. So we need to figure out what's going on with the coils. He says there's a fuse under the playfield that blows immediately whenever you put it in. So let me get the keys and let's plug her up and see what she do. We have entered the tomb. A little dusty, but in pretty good shape, really. So he's saying there's a fuse blowing. I wonder if it's right here on the power supply. Let's eyeball it, people. Now, you know I always check them with meters, but since we're here looking, I can't see crap. That one looks good. See, this is why you can't just eyeball them. The third one looks alright. Fourth one looks alright. Fifth one. Sixth one. I wonder if that's the one. Yeah. We're unplugged, people. That's a 20 amp, so that shouldn't be it. Yeah. So that won't be the problem. Alright, we'll have to do more research. Maybe he means it's on the actual playfield. Look, people, I don't want to hear any complaints about my filming skills here now. Come on now. Come on, people. Alright, let me prop the playfield back, and then we'll be able to extrapolate it. Aha! I knew it! I knew it! I knew what that guy was saying was true. So he said there's a fuse that blows over and over again. And so much so that it ain't even in there anymore. We'll figure that out. We gotta look at the schematics, folks. We're gonna schematic it. So here is a ball gate, it appears. If you've never seen one of these, it's one of my favorite little inventions. So they have a relay, and it's an old school relay, kind of like the EMs. I don't know about that switch there. I guess it's all right. And when the relay pulls in, it moves this little thing. They often need oiled. It moves this little thing, which moves the little gate up on the playfield that you can't see right now. I'll show it to you here in a minute. So we got one there, and didn't I see one over here? Yes. Yes, I did. Here's another one with it switched, adjusted more appropriately. It's two ball gates. Here are the two linear flippers. They stopped twisting things and made it where the thing just goes straight back. Look at that. I call them the linear flippers. I've heard people complain about them. In my opinion, very nicely designed flippers, but what do I know? Two kickers. Also linear, you know, they don't use a lever or anything. That probably did make it cheaper to manufacture. If you don't know, in the early 80s, 81, 82, the pinball market about went out of business. I mean, it was bad. They were coming up with new designs and really cool stuff, and then sales kind of dropped. It was kind of a fad for a little while where it got really hot, and then sales dropped and quarter dropped. You also had the arcade industry as a whole start taking a nosedive around the same time. So it just, things went bad. So the companies, to try to stay in business, they cheapened up their machines a little bit. And then it was saved. You could argue that it was saved by the game Space Shuttle. Space Shuttle was a mother. That one was great. And it kind of got people back into pinball. And then you had a bunch of a second rush of really cool solid state games. All right, so there's our little flipper that we were talking about. Also linear, just has a smaller bat on it. Here is our 4 drop targets. just like the earlier Bally drop targets. But really, you know, this is only probably 83 or 84, something like that. Does it say? I don't see a date anywhere. You know, 85 actually. A little later. 85. This must have been one of the last Bally -35 games, but we'll see. Unless it's a... Yeah, it's not a 6803, but it's in like a 6803-ish cabinet. Now, sometimes I don't completely explain what I'm doing. The board set that Bally originally came out with was called the -17. It's the CPU of the MPU of the set. And then after that, they upgraded it to a -35, which was basically the same board. It just could take higher, bigger ROMs. And then they used that board set, which was the same solenoid board, the same lamp displays, the same lamp board, even the same power supply. They made a couple different revisions, but basically the same concept for many years. But then eventually they moved on to their 6803 system, which ran off of a 6803 chip. And the reason that I looked over there is because there is a little keyboard that controls the 6803. So if you look, if there's a keyboard hanging over there, it's a Bally 6803. Okay, so here is the eject saucer that is not ejecting. Definitely ain't ejecting. Now I want to show you something that I've seen all the way back in the EM pinball days. I think Fireball does this. To make that ramp, they have just cut a slice of the wood of the playfield out. Now this is the playfields are made of plywood. See how thick the ply is on that? It's nice plywood because they don't want it to warp. So the playfields are made of plywood, and then they have shaved it down. They cut it out, and then they shaved it down here in the middle so that it's thinner, which allowed them to just bend that piece up in the air with these little brackets. So by doing that, they're able to just make a ramp right out of the middle of the wood. Like I said, Fireball is like that too. It may have just been Fireball Classic. I've never had an original Fireball, but Fireball Classic was an EM, and it was made like that. It didn't have the little hinge on it, I don't believe, but they just bent the wood. Okay, these had their lamp sockets that suck too. These lamp sockets like this suck. Now, how often do you hear me say bad things about anything? I don't. This is warranted. These sockets suck. The original sockets, they break every once in a while, but these break all the freaking time. Now, these lamp boards, you have problems with them too, so we'll figure it out. He said he's got light problems, so we'll figure it out. All right, so I'm happy with what I'm seeing. I want to look in the schematics and figure out what that 1 amp slow blow goes to. Does it go to everything on the playfield or just the flippers or what? So let's go check that out. Well. What have we got here? This game has been reported to have been factory issued with any one of these 3 MPUs. The Bally MPU AS251835, that's the one that I was talking about. Remember I said it must have been one of the last ones? The Bally MPU 6802, the Bally MPU 6803. I've never even seen the 6802, so that's interesting. So apparently, yeah, this was the very last -35 game. Maybe they went back to it later, but it looks like it's the transition game at least, right? Where they actually released some of them with both board sets. Very, very cool. Alan Reisman said he remembers discussing this with Doug McDonald when the 35 board was revised. The original 6800-based MPU was developed in the mid-70s. After 10 years, some of the key components, including the MC6800 chip itself, were becoming hard to obtain or discontinued. A complete redesign was planned and eventually resulted in the 6803 MPU. However, there was a backlog of production needs for the 35 board. To satisfy immediate demand for replacement parts and games in production, a quick revision of the 35 to replace the discontinued IC components was rushed through, and that, I believe, is the 6802 based board. Ooh, that might be the one that's in there. There's a weird board in there. We're going to look. I had left Bally at the time, but over coffee one morning, Doug told me they went to place orders for upcoming production and were surprised when some chips were no longer available. They wound up starting production with the 35 boards until the components were exhausted, then put the 6802 board into production as a direct replacement as needed. An amusing side note is that when pinball production was in its heyday in the late 70s, Midway placed a huge order for components like displays and chips. After production died down in the early 80s, it was thought they had a lifetime supply of some things like 6-digit displays. It was thought the new technology platform would replace the original board set before the chips ran out, but apparently not all the chips were available at the end. Well, now we got to look in the back box. You must be dying to look in the back box of this thing. Let me show you one of the things I don't really like about this cabinet. All right. So look at this beautiful back glass. This is like a gorgeous back glass, and it's in perfect shape. And it's held in place by this little plastic thing. If this plastic thing bends a little bit, I can just see that beautiful glass falling out of that damn thing. And it also just slides right out. Okay. 5 displays. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're 7-digit displays. Okay. Is that a squawk and talk or a cheap squeak? It's a cheap squeak. You thought I was joking. You thought I was like making that. Nah, come on, that's what they call it. It's called the cheap squeak. See it? Cheap squeak. Okay, there's one of the auxiliary lamp board for extra light bulbs. Here is the lamp board. Here is the solenoid board that somebody has replaced with a stern, which is fine because it's completely compatible. And here is that's it, isn't it? That's that 6802 board, they're calling it. Wow. I've never seen one. So that's just like the 35 system, but it runs with the 6802. And one of the things I notice is this crystal. I don't believe there is a crystal on a 6800 base board. It's got a chip that creates the clock signal, or yeah, it must not be internal. There's some kind of IC right here that creates the clock on a 6800. Wow. Well, you see something new every day. I had no clue. So they have taken out the capacitor, the original battery at some point, and put a capacitor in there. That's cool. The only thing with these capacitors, if you replace your battery with a capacitor, if you leave it off for a while, the capacitor might drain and then reset your high scores and stuff. Not that big of a deal, especially on a Bally, because you can still play it even if the scores reset. Okay, so yeah, it's got the special board in it. All right, so let's figure out what the 1 amp fuse goes to. So here is Bally's Fireball from 1972. It's an EM, and there's the ramp that I'm telling you about that they made out of the playfield. They just cut a strip out of it and then bent the wood up to make a ramp. Brilliant. So this is Bally's Fireball Classic from 1985, which also has the wood ramp built out of the playfield. Now, ironically, this is the only other game that uses the 6802 board that's in this Cybernaut, and it was made at pretty much the exact same time. So they made 2 games with bent wood playfields right after each other using the weird board, and then moved on. So this is what was going on with Bally in '83. They had restructured because Midway and Bally had merged, I guess. Were they already together? Yeah, they were already together. Whatever, they had restructured in '83. So here are the last of the Dash 35 games, and you can see that they didn't really sell that many. So Grand Slam sold 1,000, Centaur 2 sold 1,550, Gold Ball sold 1,750, 8 Ball Deluxe, that was like the next release of it. They were basically releasing that, trying to use up some of the cabinets from the failed rapid fire experiment. Granny and the Gators, very unique game. X's and O's was a kind of a hit for him, sold 3,300. Kings of Steel 2,900. Black Pyramid 2,500. Spy Hunter 2,300. You see what it's doing. Hot Shots. So Hot Shots was just a prototype game, and it was made with their new board set, the 6803 board set, apparently. And they just made 6 prototypes, and nobody liked it, so they never made it. So then they made Fireball Classic, but they didn't have the chips to go into production on the 6803 board. So they took some of the 35 boards and changed them, like we were just looking at, to make them 6802, they called it, for Fireball Classic and then for Cybernaut. So this game here, they only made 900 copies of. 8-Ball Champ, 1,500. Again, you know, that was another take on 8-Ball, because 8-Ball was such a good game for them. They just kept doing 8-Ball games, but it only sold 1,500. We had one of those not too long ago, and it was, in fact, a 6803, so it had the little keyboard and everything like the new system had. The 6803 board also had the solenoid driver board and all of that kind of split up to where it was combined into either the power supply or the MPU, so it made it where there was only really like 2 boards in the thing. I guess there was a sound board too. So yeah, you can see how they were kind of circling the drain here. Things were going bad, folks. Very bad. It looks like they didn't have a hit for a long time there. Yeah, that's depressing. None of those did all that good. What happened in 88? We got to figure that out. All right, so in 88, they changed to Williams, and they had a little bit of a hit with Elvira and the Party Monsters. 4,000 units in 89. And then they hit again in 1990. Dr. Dude did pretty good for them. Gilligan's Island did pretty good. The Party Zone, and you see it all creeping back up, and then boom, the Addams Family just freaking crushed it. 20,000 games. So that's 1992. 8-Ball in 1977 sold 20,000 games. So they had a lot of hits in the late 70s and the very early 80s, but they went through a long dry spell there. It's lucky that they even stayed in business. All right, so here are the schematics, and you see this line coming up, 43 volts DC, and then it goes to the fuse. The fuse fuses the right gate, the left gate, the right slingshot, the left slingshot, the thumper bumper, of which there is only one, by the way. Got to keep those costs down. The saucer, which is where the ball is stuck, the drop target reset, and the out hole. So that fuse is blowing. So in theory, our flippers should still work. And also, the game won't boot without the solenoid line, at least on the 35 version of the game. And this one, it looks like the same board set. They just changed the MPU. I mean, the actual CPU chip from a 6800 to a 6802. April 19th, 1985, Cybernaut. Subject introduction of the 6802 MPU. The 6802 board was designed to replace the standard Pinball 6800 MPU because several of the component parts are either unavailable or becoming difficult to obtain. The 6802 board, when looked upon as a black box, is completely pin-for-pin compatible with the standard 6800 MPU-35. This feature will allow the operator to install program IC chips from older games in the new board utilizing the same jumper combination that existed on the older 6800 boards. Since the 6802 board is similar in appearance to the 6800 board, the component numbers have been changed on the legend to prevent the operator from accidentally referring to old 6800 drawings while troubleshooting. Following is a cross-reference list, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so they're showing you where it was and what it is, or what it is now and what it was then. Looks like things are similar. And this is from Bally, obviously. It's got a dual precision monostable multi-vibrator, 744538. It uses the same 6821 PIAs as the old one. The MPU is a 6802. Oh, and this is, they're going backwards, basically. So they're showing you from one to the other and then from the other to the other one. Notes, C4 on the 6802 MPU has been changed to a 4.7 microfarad tantalum capacitor. The 6802 MPU U6 RAM 5114 is not interchangeable with the 6800 MPU U8 RAM 5101. All right, so we're going to test the coils to see if it's anything on the actual playfield or if it appears to be on the MPU. I mean, not the MPU, the solenoid driver board. So if there's, basically, if one of these coils is shorted or if it's locked on or burn up, or if the transistor that drives it on the solenoid board is shorted, locked on, or burnt up, it will make that fuse blow. Or they were putting the wrong size fuse in. But since it's a 1 amp, they probably put that or bigger in. If it was like an 8 amp, then there's a likelihood that the customer might put a 1 amp in or something, just not knowing that you can't do that. But if it's a 1 amp, it needs a 1 amp, they might have put a 10 amp or something in, but they probably didn't put a half amp in. You know what I mean? All right, so the way that you check them is you put your multimeter on ohms, and if you want to do it like chopsticks because you're holding the phone with one hand, you can do it like this. I need to go get my new meter that the gentleman gave me. 14 ohms. Okay? So is that one shorted? No. It would be much lower than that. You'd have a measurement below like 1 if it was shorted. Okay, so we're basically just going to check every one of them. Oh, that is one of the ones that thing messes with. 15 ohms. That one's not shorted. $196 ohms. So that's on this gate. Let's see if that other one's like that when we get up to it. Here's our thumpa bumpa. 2.8 ohms. It's scary. That's pretty low, but that is not a short. Okay. You may see something similar on these kickers. 11. Okay, that's good. 11, probably because it's basically the same setup, left kicker and a right kicker. We don't have to worry about the flippers. At least we don't think we do. 11, yeah, that was the other kicker. And then the left gate, 193. Yeah, those gate coils. Now, why is the resistance really high on the gate coils? It's because they're permanent. What do they call that? Permanent on or something like that, coils. Basically, if that gate opens, it might stay open for an hour, depending on how good you are at pinball. But it might stay open for 5 minutes. So the ohms has to be higher so that it doesn't get really hot. Basically, the ohms you're measuring if it's a short or not, you know. So whenever the ohms are only, what was that one, 3? 2.8 or something, this thumper bumper, that's a strong short, basically. So it's going to be much stronger than one that is like 200 ohms, just, well, depending on the wires and stuff, the size of the wires, the gauge of the wires. But you just need that one to move this little tiny bar. That's all you need it to do. So it works fine. Yeah, I don't see a shorted coil. So let's look at the solenoid driver board. So here is the solenoid driver board that we see in all of the early Ballys and Sterns. And would you look at this? Someone has did Clay's mod that I'm always telling everybody to do. You run the negative from the 5-volt filter capacitor down to a bigger trace. What is this? They've also tied test point 1 and test point 3 together. Very well done, whoever you are in antiquity. They have also tied the ground from the display filter capacitor to ground. They have also reflowed the pins. Somebody's been watching my channel. Very cool. All right. I need to test all of these to see if one of them's bad. That could cause our issue. All right, so at the bottom of this board are all of the transistors that run the solenoids. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fiddle around with the first one until I find the base, the collector, and the emitter. So let's say that the middle, let's say the bottom one is maybe the base. If I measure between it and the middle leg, I get 0.474. If I measure between it and the top, I get 341. Now if I reverse the leads and measure from the bottom one to the middle, it's open. From the bottom to the top, it's 3.340, which tells me that's kind of a useless measurement. So I'm going to put the red lead on the bottom pin, the black lead on the middle pin, and get 0.47. And then between the red lead on the bottom and the black lead on the top, I get 0.341. And then we're just going to go down and do every one of them like that and see if any of them appear shorted. Or do we get similar readings all the way down the board? I'm not looking at a specific transistor. I don't know which one's doing what. I'm just seeing if any of them look freaky. And mainly, since it's blowing a fuse, I'm looking for one that's shorted together. If I find one that's shorted together... Oh, wait a minute. What is this? Now, y'all think I set that up. I didn't set it up. So that's what you're looking for. You saw what's going on, right? I'm running from the bottom pin to the middle pin. And on 1, 2, 3, 4, on 6 of them, it says 0.46. Okay? Now on this one, when I do it, it says 0.000. That one's different. And so if it's shorted, what that's doing is it's shorting the that coil on, because it's shorted to ground. So these transistors turn the ground on the coil whenever the board tells it to. But this one, it's shorted, so it's always on. So as soon as you turn the game on, that coil pulls in whatever that one runs. And that coil pulls and goes, mee, and if it, heaven forbid, it's that thumper bumper. If it's that thumper bumper that's only 3 ohms, it ain't going to take long. It's going to pop the fuse. So that's why his fuse is blown. Let's see if there's any more. Now see, between it and the top, everything's cool. So that top leg is likely the signal coming from the IC to turn it on. So maybe that's the, well, whatever, you get it. That's probably the base. You get it. You guys understand. And girls. Let me, what I usually, I just bend it or something to make that one different so I can tell which one's the messed up one. Okay, so let's check through some more. That one's still bad. So measuring between the bottom and the top leg, you probably don't have to do. But, you know, create your own system here, people. Now notice it doesn't really even matter if you know what the chip even is or what the transistor even is. You're just comparing them together because they're all the same. And also, you don't care if it's a little off. There's 3 areas basically. So there's not connected, which is like that. It says open line, or it's really high. So not connected, all the way down to about 0.79 or something like that. Basically means there's no connection there. Okay, and then there's this connection, which is between 0.4 and 0.7 or so. That means there's a gate there. There's a voltage drop there, right? Now this one, 0.34, nah, it's a little low, but you saw what really low is, right? The lowest of low is 0, right? So what, if you get down below 0.4, yeah, that one might be weird if 1 or 2 of them are like that. So if you're measuring along and it's 0.7, it's 0.5, it's 0.6, it's 0.7, blah blah blah, and then you get and it's 0.35. Yeah, if that's the only one like that, that might be a sign that you got a problem on that one. You're just looking for what's different. So we're down to the last 2. All right. So You would never know, just by looking at the front, that Q9 is messed up. I bent it like that. But Q9 is our culprit. So I'm going to replace it. These happen to be TIP 120, TIP 120s, and you can replace those with a TIP 102, which is stronger, so it's better. Let's look and see in the schematics what Q9 is. Now, if everything lines up perfectly, if the stars are doing what they're supposed to be that should be one of the coils on the playfield that is beyond that 1 amp fuse. Oh, they're making it hard on the working man. Q9, it's pin 9 on J5, but they don't label it. Come on now. Usually it's labeled. It should tell me right there what it does. Now I gotta go research. All right, J5, pin 9, bumper. Heaven forbid it be the thumper bumper, just like I said. So that's why it's blowing immediately. He said whenever he turns it on, immediately, before it even boots up or anything, bam, that fuse blows. It's because it's locking that freaking thumper bumper on, and that's the hottest coil in the game. So, direct short. I wonder if it's messed up. It's at 3 ohms. What do you think? I think it's fine. I think it's just how it's supposed to be. But if it blows it out, if it screws it up again, then it may actually be the coil. But it was like 2.8 ohms or something like that. I think that's probably appropriate. All right, folks, so I replaced it, put it back in there. We've plugged it up. I put another 1 amp fuse in there. It's very accessible right here by the front door. You don't even have to lift the playfield. So we'll watch that. Now I'm going to turn it on for just a second and see if it blows the fuse or if anything locks on. And if it doesn't immediately, we're going to turn it back off and then we'll boot it and watch the MPU. Okay, I think we're good. He said it was doing it like immediately. All right, now this MPU, if it works like the 6800, there's a light down there at the bottom, and I just saw it flashing out of the corner of my eye, so that will flash really quick, like a blink, like a really quick one. And then it will flash 7 more times. That's like the boot up sequence. So we'll watch that. Now the reason that I didn't look at the solenoid fuse on the power supply, you might be thinking, well, why didn't you even, I mean, we did, we looked at it, but why didn't you suspect that was it and get out the meter? It's because the board was booting. So this board will not boot without the solenoid voltage, which comes from the power supply. So if the 7th flash would be missing on the board if the fuse was blown on the power supply. And, you know, he clearly had the fuse missing on the playfield. That's the one that was blowing. So if the playfield fuse is blowing, it's either a coil on the playfield or it's a transistor on the solenoid driver board. All right, so let's watch and see if we get all of our boots. Our boot code diagnostic test doing what it should. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Came right up. It came right up, folks. It came right up. But look, that's not how you play pinball. All you people that want me to play pinball with the lights on, come on, what are you doing? You gotta live a little, folks. You gotta kill the lights. You know, look, it's deserted down here, working on the pinball late at night. You can see a lot of the lights are out, so they need a little work. We'll do that in another video. But let's see if we can get her to play. Hell yeah! The drop targets have reset. He mentioned maybe getting new drop targets. I don't know. Well, I'll ask. I'll talk to him. This is going to be a cool game, but it needs a little work. I'll tell you another thing that we need to do to it. The back legs are flat as hell. And he was mentioning that, and that's a problem. It should not be like that. I'm gonna switch to right-handed play because I'm ambidextrous. Yeah, the ball barely has enough to go back down the playfield. Okay, I'll tell you another thing. The cheap squeak, does it not have speech? Is that the one where they took the speech out? The Squawk and Talk had speech. Did the cheap squeak take the speech out? So it could be that they've got the speech turned off. Let me look at the manual real quick on that. Sound option. The game is designed to make several tones and noises to announce power up, game up, etc. The tones are intended to attract attention to the game and increase game usage. The tones are controlled by pressing the self-test button until the number 18 shows on the match ball and display. Now pulse the replay button to desired sound setting. Yeah. So if it's on 0, most switches are associated with chimes without feature background. Setting 1, playfield switches associated with chimes with background. Setting 2, most scoring will have a noise effect without background. Setting 3, most all scoring will have a noise effect with background. Well, you know, I'm a big fan of the background sounds on these games, so we're going with that one. But yeah, it looks like it does not have speech, people. So 18 is set on 0, which means it's chimes with no background sound. So we're about to change this guy's world. We're about to rock his world. He doesn't even know what his thing can do. Yeah. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. So look at this great back glass. You got a lizard person on it. Some kind of robot. Looks like one of our politicians. You got this chick. She's half cyborged herself. I don't know why they do that. Well, wait a minute. On second thought, she's all human. Very cool. What are they ripping off? They're kind of, that reminds me of something. What am I seeing here? I don't know. Maybe it's just reminding me of like Galaga, which they owned, so it doesn't really matter. And it looks in the camera like this is faded. It is not faded. That back glass is mint. 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100. It's a perfect back glass. Beautiful. So let's see what the sounds sound like. Now we're talking. All right, so this thing, it's playing. So this is probably the best the guy has played it when it worked right. He said he got a real good deal on it, but we're gonna do him one better. I like it, man. Yeah, so we're going to do the guy a favor, and we're going to set it up a little bit. So it needs shopped, it needs set up. So basically there's just little minor things that could make it play a heck of a lot better. The main one is it needs some pitch. Those back leg levelers are really flat. We need to jack that thing up about another inch. It'll make the ball roll a lot better. The flippers are very strong. It won't cause a problem with the flippers. It'll just make it much more fun to play. And then we'll figure out the light bulbs that aren't working. It might just be the bulb, or it could be the board. Whenever you get problems where there's like entire areas that aren't lighting up, a lot of times that's something on the board. But we can figure that out. And cleaning it will make it better. We'll see if we can get his drop targets to look a little better. And just checking switches to make sure everything's scoring and everything bounces like it should. But just getting the angle steeper will make it play twice as nice as it is now. But guess what? We'll do that on another video. So we'll see you next time. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. Have you ever played this cool game? If you don't know, I'm kind of a sucker for these cheaper ones that are like stuff that nobody ever talks about. These are my favorite ones. So this kind of stuff's right up my alley. Sally. So anyway, leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. If you want to support our channel, people, let me tell you how you can do that. There's two ways. One, did you know we have a new It's Broke t-shirt? We do. We have a brand new It's Broke t-shirt. We had them silk screened ourselves by our good buddy Matt. Okay, got limited quantities, but if you would like one, email us and we can sell you one. Joe himself will sell you a It's Broke t-shirt. Give us an email. Our email address is below every video, or you can go on our website, Lions Arcade. The link is on there as well. We can ship the thing to you right here from our shop. And finally, don't forget to check out my brother Donnie. My brother has his own channel here on YouTube. There are three of us boys, Ronnie, Donnie, and Joey. My brother Donnie has a channel of his own. We work on arcade games, pinball machines, and jukeboxes. My brother Donnie works on old buildings, old vehicles, and he has a farm with cows and goats. You got to see that. So I'm over there with him on his channel a lot. I will see you over there, but I'll see you back in a couple days where we'll finish up this Cybernaut, and then we'll play it with two hands, so it'll be much more enjoyable. We'll see you then. Cybernaut.